everyone, Jon O here, back again with another Forbidden Memories challenge run. In our last video, we successfully beat the game with Pocket Station spellcasters, and also dropped the rap in the process. With another run down, it's time to move on to the next, and oh friggin' boy, do a lot of you want to see reptiles. Since the dawn of the series, they've been requested. How can I say no to you all? So on that, let's move on to the type analysis. Reptiles are one of the more underrepresented types in Forbidden Memories. There are a total of 12 reptiles in game, none of which stronger than 1800 attack. There are 8 reptiles available to the player in the starting deck, 3 unlocked during the story, and 1 strangely kept behind the Pocket Station. The starting deck for this playthrough looks like this. Safe to say, we're gonna have our work cut out for us this run. Here's a quick recap of the rules. I've procrastinated long enough. It's time for us to start this challenge. Framped, I'm back. Egypt is on fire and is more lit than the rap that I dropped in that last video.
Excellent work. Age hasn't slowed you down one bit. Before I return you to your world, you must stop a great calamity from befalling Egypt once more.
What is it this time?
Whacking Day.
Whacking Day?
Whacking Day.
You want me to stop Egypt from flogging their snakes?
I knew you'd understand.
At this point, I don't think anyone does.
That's the spirit. Ow.
Being spat-shat into Egypt, we encounter Sssicmeton, who's looking a little different from the norm today. Turns out, he's been bitten by several snakes throughout the years, and he's on our side for this playthrough. Guess that should have been painfully obvious, since, you know, he's the only blue person in this game. In order to prepare us for our upcoming ordeal, he challenges us to a duel. Welcome to the Reptile run of Forbidden Memories, and already from the intro you can tell that this deck has not been set up for early success. Reptiles in Forbidden Memories are one of the few types that do not get a field boost. Fortunately, they aren't reduced by other fields either. Take notes fairies, you could have done this. In terms of equip card compatibility, they don't have a signature equip card according to card lore. However, every reptile in this game can all be powered up by raised body heat. The others are split between 2 equips, those being Beast Fangs and Power of Heishin, depending on the monster's second Guardian Star. Most of the Jupiter types work with Power of Heishin, whereas Beast Fangs relies on you having a fanged monster in the card image. I'll leave things there because we're now on to the last turn of the duel. Attacking for game with Drooling Lizard, Sssicmeton goes down and he gives us a Muka Muka. Snake Eyes is satisfied with our current power level and lets us roam freely throughout Egypt. What a good guardian he is. Entering the duel grounds, we encounter Teana. Teana is an ophiologist. Like Sssicmeton, she is also on our side this playthrough and is against the whole Whacking Day tradition. Good news for us. So on that, let's continue. We covered off the equip cards for reptiles, and we're very happy with our options. What's the downside? Well, the monsters themselves. The strongest reptile monster is 1800 attack. Yup, 1800 attack, and we do not get access to it until we reach Kepura, or get lucky with the Ocean Mage for an S rank drop. Our strongest reptile for the time being is Yomagard. It hits for a whopping 1200 attack until we reach the World Tournament. It should be enough to cover us for early Egypt, but let's see how the rest of this playthrough goes. Getting to the last turn of the duel, Teana goes down and she awards us a Dancing Elf. Let's move on to the Villager trio. Remember, you can only face off against Villager 3 during the start of the game. The minute you start the Mage Festival, he is locked out for the remainder of the playthrough. Let's get on to the topic of subtypes. We can't take advantage of any of them during this playthrough. All reptile monsters have the ability to fuse into a Soul Hunter when they're combined with a Clown Zombie or Crass Clown. Reptiles with a Neptune Guardian Star can be fused with Ground Attacker Bugroth to become Amphibious Bugroth. As for the general weaker reptiles, fusing one with a plant will result in Snakeyashi if it's less than 1000 attack. If you fuse one with a Thunder, it will result in Electric Lizard if it's less than 850 attack. There are no other fusions we can take advantage of. And also, no other monsters that share the secondary typing of reptile, or if they did, I haven't noticed. Anywho, Villager 1 Giselle goes down and he awards us a Shadow Spectre. Let's move on to Villager 2, aka Malairuka according to Falsebound Kingdom. I wish there was more I could tell you about the type of reptiles in this game, but sadly, I'm out of content. I've put things off for long enough, so we have to start the trivia early on in this playthrough. This is probably going to make all the people that fall asleep to my videos very happy. So on that, let's kick off our first card, being Crocodilus. This is the second strongest reptile available to the player in the starting deck, and is also a recolored counterpart to Anthrosaurus. When looking at the wikis, the fandom wiki says that it's a counterpart to Toon Alligator. That is incorrect on the count of 1, an alligator and a crocodile are different animals, and 2, the fandom wiki is often full of crap based on my track record of trivia. We'll briefly pause on that for now, because we're on to the last turn. We attack for game with the said Crocodilus, and Villager 2 goes down, awarding us a Steel Scorpion. Why the hell did my voice crack just then? Ah well. Speeding through things, we're on to Villager 3, aka Old Greg, because he hasn't got a name as far as I'm concerned. Let's continue. In terms of anime appearances, Crocodilus appeared in episode 8 of the anime, used by Mokuba during his duel against Yugi. As for the TCG, Crocodilus appears on the artwork of Gradle Parasite, and that's about it from what I'm aware of. On a side note, I like Gradles by the way, I think they're neat. They were actually the first deck I used for YCS. It was a Gradle Yang Zing deck. Unfortunately, I played that during the peak of Masked Hero Dark Lore, and found myself quickly on table 400. Ah well. Getting back to the duel, we're on to the second last turn of the game. Summoning out a Yormagard, I have to get better at pronouncing that, my laptop kicks off into Power Saver and slows down the game a little bit. With the last 5% battery power, we attack for game and Villager 3 goes down. We win, oh jeez, and he awards us a Frog the Jam. All the duels thus far have had 0 losses and also 0 Raigeki. Time for a cutscene. The town is gathering in the square in preparation for Whacking Day. They're running a competition this year to find out who will win the trophy as the best snake beater. We cut across to Seto, who is searching for the ultimate bat. He's keen to come out first this year and beat off the most snakes in the area. Turning his sights to us, he attempts to challenge us to a duel, then immediately runs away remembering who the heck he's dealing with. We exit the town square and make our way back to the duel grounds. We get to say hi to our good old friend, Jon O'Finnagen, who also isn't too thrilled with the Whacking Day tradition. It was created back in 1924 as an excuse to beat up the Irish.
"'Tis true, I took many a lump, but it was all in fun."
Anywho, whipping out our serpent, it's time to continue the trivia. Whilst it's on the field, let's cover off Jormungand, or more appropriately if you're following Norse mythology, Jormungandr. One of the 3 children of Loki, tossed into the great ocean that encircles Midgard. Despite obviously being a sea serpent, its attribute is earth instead of water, and is also the counterpart of Karyushin, and like with all counterparts in Forbidden Memories, shares the same 3D model. This card debuted in the OCG as part of Booster Pack 3, and that is it for the trivia. Dropping our first Raigeki for the win for this playthrough, we attack for game and we win a pot the trick. Whipping him with the snake, Seto enters the room, and look at that, he brought his groupies. The duels thus far haven't been too bad. Seto's probably going to be our first real opponent, given that he can summon out a Guy the Fierce Knight, and actually knows how to fuse as well. The rest of the duel is going to be determined on whether we get a turn 1 Guy the Fierce Knight. Summoned, Jupiter, not a Gaia. We're good, let's continue the trivia. While it's on screen, let's look over Toon Alligator. Despite its impressive defense, this monster can still fuse with a Thunder to make Electric Lizard, given that its attack is less than 850. Bit of a downgrade if you ask me. Let's get the obvious bit out of the way. Despite being called a Toon monster, it is not classified as a Toon monster. But nonetheless, this card is still used by Maximilian Pegasssssus, starting off in episode 26 of the anime. It then got used in episode 149 by Alistar, and then moved on to GX, where it appeared again in episode 92 used by Pegasssssus. Looking at the TCG, this card was released as part of Speed Duel Starter Deck Destiny Masters. Whereas in the OCG, this released as early as Volume 7 of the Booster Pack, and also included in Structure Deck Pegasus. And that's it for the trivia on this card. We move on to the second last turn of the game. We pass the duel back to Seto, who does absolutely nothing, and we drop our second Raigeki of this playthrough. We attack 1 with Beak Snake, attack 2 with Jormungand, and gosh I feel sorry for this laptop, I still haven't charged it. Anywho, we won. Seto drops us a Candle of Fate, and all this was done in 1 try. Seto storms off in defeat, and we say goodbye once more to our 2 friends. Time to head to the palace and check in on Simon. Excuse the birds going off in the background, I cannot do anything about it. Moving on. We return back to the palace and say hi to old Snake Eyes. Ssssimon returns to his chambers and decides to unwind with a good game of croc when he's suddenly interrupted by some rumbling outside. On exit, he finds that Whacking Day has made its way into the palace, with Heishin busting in waving around a Millennium Bat. With more good vibrations, Pheasdus kicks us out of our room and is promptly apprehended by Seto and his goons. Silly Seto, that's Pheasdus, not a snake. I'm sure she'll be fine once he clears up the misunderstanding. Running outside, Ssssimon hands us a Millennium puzzle. Given that he's been beaten several times by everyone in the palace, he leaves the rest of the story up to us. And speaking of the story, here's Heishin. He's here to deck us. We don't like that, so we're going to challenge him to a duel. Let's put on some more appropriate music first. There we go. The deck as it is right now has a very slim chance of beating this duel. If I compare it to the Pyro deck, we had Fire Yarrow, who had 100 less attack points than Yormagard. The only reason why I was able to pull off a win against Heishin in that is that he's compatible with 6 equip cards, whereas Yormagard only has 4, only 3 of which are in my deck. Thankfully turn 1, Heishin set a face down, and we drew 3 friggin' Raigeki. I'm hoping to stall him out so he builds out a field and then progressively wipe it so I'm dealing with things weaker than his starting monster. So here's Raigeki number 1, and I think we're in the clear. He summons out a Garma Sword, fantastic. We now only need to hit over 2550. Unfortunately, I still don't have enough equipped cards. I'm going to sacrifice 1 Raigeki to clear it and then hope it doesn't bring out anything too strong. Still not a good hand and we have a face down. I'm going to attack it just in case it's a widespread ruin, which turns out it isn't, which is good for us. He retaliates with a Suijin, which is definitely beatable. Unfortunately, I still don't have enough equipped cards, nor a Guardian Star boost. We're just going to have to cop the hit. Given that we've cleared about 4 monster cards, I'm hoping he doesn't top deck anything too powerful. Attack 1 with Suijin and attack 2 is a Cosmo Queen. Not good for us. What is good is this hand. Yormagard's second Guardian Star is Moon, which means it gets plus 500, just enough to take out Cosmo Queen. Turning the duel around, it is turned right back in our face. That face down was a reverse trap. All those equips hit reverse. So we're just going to fire off a 3D battle as compensation and lose in the most spectacular way possible. There we go, I told you. Yormagard is the same 3D animation as Karyushin, recolored though. Maybe even the same attack, I don't know. I'll have to find that out later. Exploding in the most fantastic way possible, we lose against Heishin 1. This does not give me confidence for the rest of the game. In a last-ditch effort, Ssssimon grabs hold of Heishin to prevent him from whacking more people with his stick. In their scuffle, the puzzle drops. With the fight over, Ssssimon heads underground, and it's time for us to continue the rest of this story in the present. Time for a flash forward. Skipping from Millennium Egypt all the way up to today's date, which by the way is the 13th of October 2024, we're coincidentally at YCS Niagara Falls, and the winning deck, to nobody's surprise once more, is another Snake Eye deck. Very fitting. Specifically, it was a Azamina Snake Eye Fire King deck. Congrats on the victory, Oliver. And on that note, it's time for us to get back to the tournament. Our first opponent for the prelims is Rex Raptor. Though we draw a dud hand, Rex Raptor is a relatively easy opponent. So we're going to jump straight back into the trivia, and the card we'll pick is Drooling Lizard, given that I just summoned it. Drooling Lizard is a counterpart to the monster Grappler, and like with all counterparts in Forbidden Memories, they share the same 3D model, albeit recolored. It is also one of the 100 recolored counterparts in the early games of YuGiOh. Drooling Lizard has made no anime appearances. As for the TCG, it debuted in Legends of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. In terms of equipped card compatibility in Forbidden Memories, you can use a Dark Energy, Axe of Despair, Insect Armor with Laser Cannon, Beast Fangs, Malevolent Nuzzler, Raised Body Heat, and Power of Kaishin. And that's the end of the trivia and the end of this duel. Rex goes down in one try and he drops us a Mountain Warrior. Time to save our game and gear up for Weevil. There is only one thing we need to worry about with Weevil, and that's a Jirai Gumo. So long as we have something over 2200 attack, we win. So happy days with that. Weevil is also the next opponent we need to grind against. If we beat him at any B, C or D rank, he'll drop us a Grappler, a 1300 attack Reptile, which we really need in our deck. So for now, let's continue the trivia, and the card we'll be looking at this time is Beaked Snake. In Forbidden Memories, this card is a counterpart to the beast monster Digbeak, and like with all counterparts, like I said before, shares the same 3D model and recolor. It is also one of the 100 recolored counterparts in the early games of Yu-Gi-Oh! Moving to the card game, Beak Snake debuted in Booster Pack 5 of the OCG, and it hasn't been released to the TCG as of the making of this video. The monster has also not had any anime appearances. When you Google search Beak Snake FMR, the fandom wiki has a bit of an error. The card image that it's showing is Claw Reacher instead of the said monster. I have no idea why. Moving back to Forbidden Memories, it's not compatible with that many equip cards. Raised Body Heat and Power of Heishin are all that it's compatible with, aside from Megamorph and Bright Castle. And that's all there is to know about this monster. Getting back to the duel, we were getting our butts kicked by YuGiOhs. Thankfully, Toon Alligator has a Mars Guardian sign, so we managed to hit over it. We're back on track. We are now on to the last 2 turns of the game. Summoning out a Beak Snake, we take out that YuGiOh, given that it only has 100 defense points. Passing the turn back to Weevil, he takes out one of our monsters, but I'm not too worried. Summoning out a Serpent Marauder, we are down to our last attack. Attack 1 with Toon Alligator, attack 2 with Serpent Marauder, and I realise that I can't math. Whoops. Short 50 life points. Well, this is definitely going to be a B, C or D rank, so let's hope that he drops us the card we're looking for. Hitotsumi Giant, that's a bummer. Oh well, you know what that means, it's time for some grinding. After 32 duels, Weevil drops us a Grappler. We sub out a copy of our 3 weakest monsters and put it in the deck. We're back, and we're ready to rock out with our croc out, and this time we're up against Mai. Adding Grappler to the deck has made very little difference, but I'll take all the boosts I can get. We're still pretty weak. You can get away with a monster around 2100 attack for the next 2 duels. So on that, let's just jump straight back into the trivia. The next card we're going to be looking at is Serpent Marauder. Serpent Marauder is a counterpart to Flame Viper, and one of the other many members of the 100 recolored counterparts. This card has had 1 anime appearance. It appeared in episode 35 of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, rescued by Chaz from the Reject Well. I've been told I need to do a run through with those cards. I'll add that to the backlog. Anywho, as for its OCG appearances, it debuted as part of the starter box and hasn't been reprinted since the making of this video. Moving back to Forbidden Memories, Serpent Marauder is compatible with the following equipped cards: Dark Energy, Insect Armor with Laser Cannon, Beast Fangs, Raised Body Heat, and of course Megamorph and Bright Castle. We are now on to the last 2 turns of the game. Passing the duel back to Mai, she attacks our Grappler with a Mystic Clown. We retaliate with a Raigeki, geez I'm misusing that, and attack with Jormungandr. We win, she goes down and gives us a giant flea. Ugh, probably should wash my hands after this. Not wasting any time, we exit the shop and face off against Bandit Keith. Like I said in the Mai duel, we'll win this as long as we get something that's 1800 attack or more. So let's jump straight back into the trivia. And right on cue, the next card we're going to look at is Grappler. Grappler, as we said before, is a counterpart to Drooling Lizard. It is both one of the recolored counterparts in the TCG, and in Forbidden Memories shares the same 3D model, like with every other counterpart I've said thus far. Grappler has actually had a few anime appearances surprisingly. It first appeared in episode 8 of Duelist Kingdom in Mokuba's flashback, then again in episode 10 used by Ghost Kaiba. In episode 16 you can see this in Kaiba's briefcase, and in episode 26 you can also see it again in Kaiba's briefcase. Moving to the TCG, Grappler appears in the artwork of Molting Escape, and if we look more closely into the artwork of Molting Escape, you can see that the shed skin seems to resemble Drooling Lizard, with the main monster being Grappler, so take that for whatever lore you'd like. Getting back to the duel, we won! Bandit Keith goes down and gives us a Brave Scissor. Ay indeed. Guess what? It's time for a Shadi cutscene. We catch up with Joey, who's a little concerned that we don't have enough monster trivia for the rest of this video, especially since reptiles have no subtypes. Don't worry peeps, I got you covered. Anywho, Shadi is asking us to touch him once again in order to progress the storyline. We meet with our past self and obtain a booster pack of possession stealing cards, and then return back to the tournament once more. Obtaining our new Klepto mechanics, we show them off to our friends and make our way back to the duel table. Alright, all together now. Shadi is a pushover of a duelist. If you lose to him, you suck at this game, and you should end your Yu-Gi-Oh career right here, right now. It's been a while since we've recited that, so as we let this duel play out, I'm going to jump straight back into the trivia. The next reptile on the list we're going to look at is Mechallion. Anyways, the green McRib hasn't got much trivia on it. It debuted in the OCG as part of Booster Pack 6, and hasn't been reprinted since the making of this video. It has had no anime appearances. It is one of the worst off reptiles, I guess, in the anime, the card game, and even in our deck. In Forbidden Memories, Mechallion is only compatible with Raised Body Heat and Power of Heishin. And that's about all there is to know. We are now on to the last 2 turns of the duel. I've only got 4 more reptile monsters worth of trivia, so we gotta use them sparingly. Passing the game back to Shadi, we draw a Raigeki. We're gonna use Raigeki. Here's a Raigeki for the win and attack for game. We win. Shadi drops us a frog to jam, being neither a frog nor a jam, and we steal 2 of his possessions. Victory was achieved in 1 try, and we're on to our next opponent. We are now up to Yami Bakura, and this is where our deck might start to struggle for the rest of this tournament. Every monster we're going to be encountering thus far is going to have at least 1 stat over 2000. The good thing is, Yami Bakura plays relatively defensively. Most of these monsters would have 2000 or at least 2200 defense unless he decides to summon out a Millennium Shield. Alternatively, he might set a back row from time to time. We'll just have to see how that plays out. This duel is probably going to take longer than anticipated because of that playstyle, but we'll see how we go. As a reward, however, Yami is going to be our next grind target. If we defeat him using a B, C or D rank, he'll drop us an Ancient Lizard Warrior, a 1400 attack reptile which will be the 2nd strongest card in our deck if we win it. I wish I was joking when I said that. Who knows? This might end up being a run where I'll need to farm for an early Megamorph. Hope it doesn't come to that, but it'll be all up to the mages to decide that for us. Getting back to the duel, we trigger off another fake trap and attack once, twice, and 3 times with our reptiles. We're down to the last 2 turns of the game. With a trusty Raigeki in our hand, we pop it off and attack for game with both Jormungand's. Yami goes down, and does he drop us the card we're looking for? Nope, it's a Secretarian of Secrets. Stealing Bakura's Millennium Necklace, it's time to start grinding. Exiting out to free duel, I'm thankful that we only took 7 attempts to win a copy of Ancient Lizard Warrior. Here's what our deck looks like. Not much to write home about, but we've just subbed out some of the weaker reptiles for Ancient Lizard Warrior. Back to the tournament, let's go challenge Pegasssssus. I would like to say that having Ancient Lizard Warrior in our deck is a welcome addition. It is, I mean it's 1400 attack, but it does have a slight downside. It doesn't have that much of a shared equip pool with our other reptile monsters, aside from Raised Body Heat and Power of Heishin. The other equips are more unique to itself. We are definitely going to be in need of some Bright Castles and Megamorph, but I'm going to try and keep that till at least the final 6. While we have the card up on screen, why don't we kick off the trivia for Ancient Lizard Warrior. Ancient Lizard Warrior drops from both Kaiba and Yami Bakura at any rank. However, your B, C and D ranks will have the best odds. The monster itself is a counterpart to Stone Armadillo, another member of the 100 recolored counterparts. I should probably do a video on those. Ancient Lizard Warrior debuted in the TCG as part of Metal Raiders and hasn't been reprinted since. This card has not appeared in any YuGiOh anime either. Moving on to its equipped card compatibility in Forbidden Memories, you can use Insect Armor with Laser Cannon, Invigoration, Raised Body Heat, and Power of Heishin to power this monster up. As you can probably hear from the microphone, my little one has decided to finish this duel for me. So there we go, Pegasssssus goes down, and sadly we'd lost twice to him. The first time he summoned a Meteor Black Dragon, and the second time did the exact same friggin' thing on turn 1. Whatever RNG I seem to be getting with this deck is really working against me. Let's just hope that Ice Spice over here doesn't drop a Black Skull Dragon. Now, I've only got 3 more monster cards to cover off the trivia for, so let's not hesitate and jump straight into Armored Lizard. Armored Lizard is a card that is not in our deck because it is locked behind a pocket station for some friggin' reason. If we had access to it, it probably would have been our best monster for the rest of this playthrough. Anywho, Armored Lizard is the counterpart to Lesser Dragon, another member of the 100 recolored counterparts. I think I should do a video of them at some point, either making a playthrough of them, or maybe a YouTube short. Getting back to the card, Armored Lizard debuted in the TCG as part of Dark Beginning 1. Or, if you were in North America and Europe, it came out earlier as part of Metal Raiders. I'll pause things for now, because we're nearing the end of this duel. Attacking for game with Crocodilus, Ice Spice goes down and awards us a Yamatano Dragon Scroll. We thankfully did this duel in one try. We are on to the big baddie himself, Seto Kaiba. Does he have board wipes and back rows? Yes he does. Does he have heavy hitters that probably hit over my main monsters? He does as well. So we're in for a friggin' treat right now. I'm going to play a bit defensively and just stock up my hand with a few equip cards before we start hitting into things. Thankfully on his first turn he set a Facetown, which I can only assume is probably one of the many turtle cards he has in his deck. And there we go, it was a white turtle. Chipping away for 800, we pass the duel back to Kaiba, and while we're at it, let's just pick up where we left off on the trivia. In terms of anime appearances, Armored Lizard appeared in the following episodes of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist Kingdom series. It popped up in 16 during Joey's duel against Kaiba, then in episode 18 during his duel against Bones. In episode 26 you can see this card in Kaiba's briefcase, in 32 you can see it in Joey's hand during his duel against Bandit Keith, in 33 Joey uses this card against Yami Yugi, and we're at the end of the duel, whoops. I'll just cap off by saying it popped up in 74, 106, 109 and 159, and then later again in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX episode 43. And that's it for Armored Lizard. After taking only one try to defeat Kaiba, we trigger another cutscene where we say goodbye to Ssssimon, and we now finally return to Egypt to start taking on some mages. So long for now, Blue Komodo Joe. We'll meet again soon. Exiting the Shrine of Glory, which still has an unexplained purpose other than being the hub that we return back to, we enter the duel grounds and say hi once more to Jon O'Reilly. Returning with Teana, he lets us know that Whacking Day is still a thing, and there are many men out there beating their snakes. Time for another duel. I'm thankful that both Jon 2 and Teana 2 are about as strong as the opponents faced in the modern tournament. Heck, even a bit weaker. For Jono, we'll need a monster over 2400 attack to combat his Red Eyes Black Dragon. As for Teana, we only really need 1800. Looking at our current deck, it needs a bit of a shake-up. Right now, it's a bit of a mishmash of monsters and equip cards with no real cohesion. The plan is to get to our next grind target, win the desired card, then amend the deck with more equips that focus on our top 3 monsters. Speaking of things that need more amendment, it turns out, after briefly checking my notes, I've also messed up my Excel table. All the equip matchups have been jumbled up with each other, which probably explains why I keep throwing Dark Energy on the wrong monsters. I realised this stuff up as I started the mages. Gameplay should correct itself after I redo the deck. And speaking of things that don't need a redo, looking at our current duel against Jono, we've won. Or at least, in the next 2 turns we've won. We're short about 450 attack points. Jono throws out a Carbonala Warrior and takes out Yomagard, and we retaliate by summoning literally anything. Don't know why I bothered powering this thing up, but nonetheless, we attack once with Ancient Lizard Warrior, and attack again for game with Ancient Lizard Warrior. Jono goes down, he drops us a Star Boy, and after silencing my child, we achieve victory in one try. We're on to Teana, who's another easy opponent. Let's kick on with the trivia, and the card we're going to be looking at this time is Sinister Serpent. This card is iconic in the TCG, however in Forbidden Memories it falls off hard due to a lack of effects. Being a low attack reptile, it can be fused into a plant to make Snake Ayashi, fused with a Thunder for Electric Lizard, fused with ground attack of Bugroth for Amphibious Bugroth, and fused with Crass Clown/Clown Zombie for Soul Hunter. It strangely also has a unique fusion, where you can combine it with Arm Ninja to make Korigashi. Sinister Serpent first debuted in the TCG as part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Worldwide Edition Stairway to the Destined Duel, if you lived in North America that is. If not, it released worldwide in Legendary Collections Yugi's World. Looking at the ban list, Sinister Serpent was the first reptile to be banned, and stayed on there for about 10 years till its errata. Moving on to its artwork, Sinister Serpent appears on the art of Goblin Circus, 1x1, Snake Whistle, Waking the Dragon, Exchange, and Hand Configuration. As for its anime appearances, it appeared as a monster guardian, guarding a puzzle room door in episode 102. It then later popped up much later in episode 186 during Yugi's duel against the Kaiba Corp duel robot, and then again in 188 in Solomon's duel against Joey. Moving on to GX, it appeared in episode 5 as a face-up card in the Ghost Story episode, and lastly in episode 40 as a card spirit. Teana goes down, and with a stroke of luck, she dropped us a Sinister Serpent. That part was completely unscripted. Anywho, it's time to unlock some mages, so we head on over down to the King's Valley and say hi to Sssicmeton. Remembering that he's completely useless to us without a map, we leave and head back to the palace ruins. Why is the palace in ruins? That's a good question. Our next opponent is Mage Soldier. He isn't a problem for us. In terms of difficulty, I would place him above Teana but lower than Jono. So given that he's an easy opponent, let's briefly jump back to Sinister Serpent and finish off the rest of the trivia. In Forbidden Memories, Sinister Serpent is compatible with the following equipped cards: Dark Energy, Raise Body Heat, Follow Wind, and Power of Heishin, and naturally Megamorph and Bright Castle of course. If you're wondering why Follow Wind works on Sinister Serpent, it has wings. You can see it on the card art. The wikis say that the monster itself is based off Tsuchinoko, but last time I checked, I'm pretty sure that didn't have wings. If anything, my own personal trivia, this monster is based off Dunsparce. 100% factually correct. Looking at its errata, its original effect was to have it return to your hand during each of your standby phases if it was in your graveyard. A patch was applied to have it banish itself from your graveyard during your opponent's next end phase, and also made its effect a hard once per turn. Getting back to the duel, we are on to the final turn. Attacking for game with Crocodilus, Mage Soldier goes down. Rummaging through this room, we find a map. Let's go back to Sssicmeton. Impressed by our ability to navigate the vastness of the Egypt landscape, we finally reach the Forbidden Ruins. After staring aimlessly at the Golden Wall, we find out that we've been tailed in by Seto, who's still looking for the ultimate weapon to come out on top for this year's Whacking Day. Saying goodbye to Sssicmeton, we exit the Forbidden Ruins and start off with the mages. For this playthrough, we're going to tackle the hardest shrine first, as Kepura has the last reptile card we need to finish the deck. And that card is called Emperor of Land and Sea. An 1800 attack reptile and the strongest one in Forbidden Memories. Starting the duel off, we set a face down to bait out any Harpy's Feather Dusters. Meadow Mage responds with a 3100 attack Empress Judge. Not good for us. Thankfully, we have a Raigeki, so we're going to use one. Getting rid of his main threat, he summons out a Neku number 2, which is something we can definitely take on. Powering up a Yormagard, we're going to put it on the field, and use our last Beast Fangs to hit over Neku 2. Now that we're in a comfortable position, let's continue the trivia, and I guess the last card of the trivia, Emperor of the Land and Sea. There is very little trivia on this. It debuted in the OCG as part of Booster Pack 4, and has not been reprinted since the making of this video. This card has had no anime or manga appearances. In Forbidden Memories, you can equip it with Dark Energy, Beast Fangs, Horn of the Unicorn, Violet Crystal, Invigoration, Raised Body Heat, and Power of Heishin, as well as Bright Castle and Megamorph. Now it's worth noting at this point, I still hadn't fixed up the Excel table, so I'm throwing a large number of equips on monsters that aren't compatible with them. I apologise for this. I do end up correcting it, but yeah, a bit later in the playthrough as I said. We are now on to the last, I'm going to say 4 turns of the game. We have a Raigeki in hand and a strong enough Yormagard to take him out. Throwing a Raised Body Heat on him, we attack into Battlesteer for 2400 points of damage, pass the turn back to lower Meadow Mage, and he does nothing. We pop off a Raigeki for the win, and we attack the game with Yormagard. We win. Meadow goes down and drops us a Turupurin. We're now up to High Mage Kepura. Kepura has corralled various brown snakes into his backyard. Not that hard to do if you're in Australia. All you need is a backyard, and just let nature do its thing. Now, on screen, you're going to see me sub in some field spells into the deck. This is intentional. Our best chance against Kepura is to change his field and hope that we don't encounter a Gate Guardian. We cannot defeat that with our current deck, as the AI won't let us set up, especially on a meadow field. I finally got a cycle this time where he used a Wall Shadow, so all that's left to do is grind for some equips. Now, in the earlier scene, Kepura has captured several eastern brown snakes. They're native to Australia and are the second most venomous snake in the world. These things are also common as crap down here if you live near a farm or an area near the bushland with lots of native rodents. Brown snake venom contains both blood coagulants and neurotoxins, which is a very fancy way of saying that their venom thickens your blood into a jelly-like consistency, and also paralyzes your heart and lungs in the process. So, if you're bitten by one, you're either going out via suffocation or a stroke in about 30 minutes. These aren't much of a problem in an urban setting. If you keep your grass cut and your place free from rats, you'll hopefully never encounter one. There is thankfully an anti-venom, which comes from the brown snake itself. This became available in 1956. Most venom bites are treated via tiger snake anti-venom, however, this does not work for brown snakes. Anywho, with that random tidbit of information aside, let's get back to the duel. And we are not doing too well, to say the least. We are down to 1500 life points, and Kepura is at full health. I will say that Umi has absolutely saved our bacon during this duel, and the 2 Raigeki left in our hand should be enough for us to secure the victory. Attack 1, attack 2, pass the turn. We've got this. No matter what he summons, we drop a Raigeki for the win and attack for game with Grappler. Kepura goes down, not dropping us an Emperor of Land and Sea, and we achieve victory after 6 attempts. Yep, 5 losses to Kepura. With the snakes dispersing from the shrine, it's time for some grinding. After 13 duels, Kepura drops us an Emperor of the Land and Sea, which we promptly slap in our deck and rejig up some of the equip cards. We've kicked out most of the weaker monsters, focusing only on our top 5. Time to take on the next shrine. With our deck beefed up, let's head over to the right and take on the Forest Mage. This one on paper should be easy. And I guess since this is a Reptile run, I'm going to continue the trivia, because we're all out of cards. But this time, focusing specifically on Australian reptiles. Throw on your Akubra hat, it's time for some wildlife. And we have on screen the Australian shingleback lizard. These are from the blue tongue family, and look a bit odd. They've evolved their tails to resemble a second head. So, when an aerial predator goes in for the strike, they have a better chance of running away if it goes for the wrong head. They'll grow up to about 50 centimeters and also make good pets from what I've heard. Shinglebacks are most commonly found in the bushland and gardens in the coastal areas of Western Australia and South Australia. Alright, I'm dropping the accent, it just feels very weird to do that. At present, it's illegal for Australian native wildlife to be exported outside of the country. If you're seeing these in America and China, they've likely been initially smuggled there and then bred in captivity. Since they are not on the endangered species list, it really went through without much red flags. So if you're lucky enough to own one, I guess thank the pirate that brought it there. In terms of temperament, they're rather docile. Honestly, they just sit there, sleep, and look like a deformed pine cone. So let's appreciate that Australia does have some wildlife that is not out there to kill ya. Mind you, it's only a small number of it. Speaking of threatening things, we are on to the last 2 turns of the duel. Lower Meadow Mage summons nothing, so we Raigeki it away and attack for game with Tomb Alligator. We win. Low Forest goes down and gives us a little Chimera. And this all happened in 1 try. Anubisssius has been busy trapping several pythons, since he's a pansy and doesn't want to tackle anything venomous. Regardless, we want him to leave the snakes alone, so we challenge him to a duel. The key threat we have with Anubisssius is Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. If he doesn't summon that, we win, hopefully. First card off the rank is Flame Cerberus, and I think we're sweet. So on that note, let's continue the trivia and look at the Australian Diamond Python. The Australian Diamond Python is another common snake in Australia. You can find these in any suburbs that border on national parks or near wetlands. They're placid in nature and can grow up to 10 feet long. Being pythons, they have no venom. And due to their size, they have been reported to feed on other snakes, but mostly, from what I've heard, eat possums. I was up in Byron Bay a few years back, and the resort manager told me that they purposely kept a few of these on the grounds to keep the venomous snakes away. I managed to take a photo of them. They're really polite creatures, they know to stay behind the orange cones. That's sarcasm by the way, they went missing literally 2 minutes after I took the shot. Gotta love Australia. Anywho, we're on to the last 2 turns of the game. I had a brain snap and used Ancient Lizard Warrior instead of Crocodilus, but that's okay. Defeating his Neku 2 with our Emperor of Land and Sea, we attack with the Ancient Lizard Warrior. He responds with a Garvus which takes out Ancient Lizard Warrior, and passes the turn back to us. We win. Attack once, and he goes down. We achieve victory in 2 attempts, and all the collated diamond pythons have dispersed back into Egypt. Oh, and we steal his Millennium item in the process. Moving back to Metropolis, we decide to check in on our friends at the duel ground. Heishin and his goons of Egypt are gathering in the vast shrine to begin whacking the corralled snakes. Teana has rushed off to try and put a stop to things, but given that she isn't armed with a bat, we don't suspect she's gotten far. Speaking of not getting far, we encounter the Labyrinth Mage on the way there. The bloke has no idea about whacking day. He just likes attacking people entering his maze. That's not very plus ultra of you, my dude. Anywho, I specifically am not going to be setting any of my monsters into a Neptune Guardian Star. The two strong cards Labyrinth Mage is capable of pulling out are Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon and Sanger of the Thunder, both with a default Pluto Guardian sign, which is strong against Neptune. Sadly, the second sign is Venus, which means that we lose to any moons as well. But never fear, Raigeki is here. We clear his field and attack him directly. He summons out a Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, as expected. With another two equipped cards in hand, let's power up Emperor, and I done goofed here and accidentally put him back to a Neptune. Oh well. If ever you need to change the Guardian sign of a monster already on your field, use a card that will bounce off it and it will give you a chance to reset the Guardian sign. That will be handy information to know if we ever go around doing solo monster runs. Which who knows, maybe we will, there's a massive backlog of stuff to do. This video itself is taking much longer than expected. The clips of the World Tournament were done on the 13th of October. Looking at the date today, it's the bloody 6th of November. Getting back to the duel, we are now on to the last two turns of the game. I say two turns because for some reason, I didn't summon out Ancient Lizard Warrior. Instead, I decided to power out the Emperor for no particular reason whatsoever. I never said I was good at this game, just really persistent with it for some reason. Cottoning onto my mistake, I attack once with Emperor and attack again with Emperor, and that's game. Labyrinth Mage goes down and he drops us a Disc Magician. Eventually exiting the maze, we find Teana restrained and threatened with several bats. There's an innuendo in there somewhere, but we're gonna Sigma right past that and challenge Seto to a duel. Given that we somehow pulled the win out of our backsides against Kepura, we should be okay against Seto. If not, it's back to the Labyrinth Mage we go. Opening up our hand on turn 1, we've semi-bricked. I set a random face down to bait out a Feather Duster, and he doesn't fall for it. Instead, it looks like he's bricked his hand as well. That face down is a Wall Shadow, which means he doesn't have anything over 3000 attack. And this Blackluster Soldier proves my point. We're gonna fire off an early Raigeki because we still don't have anything to deal with him. And he sets out an Acid Trap Hole as well. The rest of this duel looks like we'll be going back and forth, so let's jump back into the Australian reptile wildlife. And this time, we're going to look at the bearded dragon. Characterised by the beard under their chin, these lizards like to live more in the central parts of Australia, in the more dry and arid conditions. I haven't seen one myself in the wild, but I suspect that they'd be more in places like South Australia. You can keep these guys as pets, and they grow up to about 60 centimeters, though most of that is their tail. And for those that haven't realised, yes, this is the lizard from the meme. And in the most rarest of occurrences, these things are not venomous and will not kill you. They are probably one of the most ASMR lizards out there. The majority of videos I've seen out there are like a bunch of compilations of people pulling off the longest shed they can off these things. Some of these TikToks and videos are sitting there at like 2 million views. It's crazy. Speaking of things that are crazy, the remainder of this duel, we seem to be in self-KO range, which is why Seto 2 attacked into our grappler. If you want to see more of that in action, you can look at the no attack run video on my channel. Anywho, Seto 2 goes down and he rewards us with a Celtic Guardian. Having successfully rescued Teana, we leave this place, head back to the duel grounds, and take on the remaining mages. The shrine we're moving to next is the Desert Shrine. This one should hopefully be easy. The strongest monster we need to contend with this guy is 2700 attack. That should be a boosted Great Mammoth of Gold find from memory. So on that, it's time for more reptiles, and the next Australian reptile we're looking at is the Frill-neck lizard. Being the logo for Totally Wild, this thing is probably Australia's most iconic lizard, and honestly, God was having a laugh when he made this thing. It is friggin' hilarious. As a defense mechanism against predators, these lizards feature a giant neck which they can frill out and fan out to scare off opponents. On top of looking batshit crazy, if their scare tactics fail, they hop up on two legs and either chase you down like Hisoka or run away like a Final Fantasy cacti. You can keep them as pets in certain states, and they grow up to 1 meter, so I guess it's probably not a good idea to keep them in captivity. Though they are native to Northern Australia, you can also find them in the southern areas of Papua New Guinea. Unless one of these things are chasing you down, they're relatively harmless. They have sharp teeth and claws and can bite you pretty hard and I guess give you a scratch, but no venom, so you can at least rest easy if you encounter one of these in the wild. Now, I wouldn't quote me on this next part, but from what I read on the internet, these lizards were the inspiration for the Dilophosaurus from Jurassic Park. And that's about all there is to know about frilled neck lizards. Getting back to the duel, the lower mage has set a pretty big back row, but they're all equipped cards, no need to worry there. Powering up our Emperor of Land and Sea, we attack into his card and pass the turn back to him. Nothing further to see here, we drop a Raigeki for the win and attack for game. Lower mage goes down and he drops us a water element. Martis in his infinite wisdom trapped a bunch of Taipans and has put himself into an Indiana Jones style life or death situation. Finding this humorous, we challenge him to a duel instead of helping him out. Martis isn't much stronger than his lower mage. Their top attack monsters are still both 2700, so I think we'll go just as well in this duel as we did the previous. So let's continue the trivia. Now, remember when I said the brown snake was the second most venomous snake in the world? Well, the Taipan is ranked number 1, and guess what? It lives in Australia. But thankfully, it's a rare thing to see, as they live in the inland desert part of Australia, and are also very timid. In terms of its venom, one bite has enough lethality to kill 100 humans. Their venom itself has neurotoxins for the brain, hemotoxins for the blood, myotoxins for the muscles, nephrotoxins for the kidneys, and hemorrhagens for the blood vessels, all backed up with hyaluronidase, which is a venom absorption booster. And that's only what the scientists have been able to categorize thus far. Oh, and hyaluronidase can also cause local tissue damage, as well as the destruction of extracellular matrix and connective tissues. This has got to be the biggest death cocktail I've ever seen. But thankfully, there's an anti-venom, and a lot of the anti-venom is partially manufactured by the Australian Reptile Park, which, if you've never been to Australia, is basically a friggin' zoo. And that's about all there is to know right now about the Taipan. And speaking of people who have been stopped, Martis. He went down, he dropped us a weather, and I'm fairly certain I've caused nightmares for the most of you for that Taipan trivia. We leave the desert and decide to take a dip in the ocean. Surely there's no scary reptiles here, right? Right? Oh boy. For the Ocean Mage, we're going to go down the non-lethal route and cover off a reptile known as the Water Dragon. Consider them Australia's iguanas. They can use their tails to swim, their claws to climb, and also do the lizard head bob thing that you probably see with other dragons. You mainly find these awesome things on the coastline of the east of Australia, usually near water. There are also a few that frequent the pond in the Chinese Gardens of Friendship if you happen to be in the Sydney CBD. Like most lizards, they're relatively timid. I say most lizards because you saw the trivia on the frilled-necked lizard. That thing is a psychopath. These guys, on the other hand, can be kept as pets. They are social animals, so they will thrive in groups or at least in a pair. I personally don't own any reptiles. Number 1, I don't have a reptile license. Number 2, I have birds. And number 3, I now have a child. And number 4, I have a wife that is scared of anything that moves. So I'm just going to have to appreciate these things from afar. Getting back to the duel, the lower mage goes down. We attack for game and he drops us a Frog the Jam. Sssecmeton has no idea what's going on. His shrine has suddenly been filled with a metric buttload of water snakes. Let's help the situation by challenging him to a duel. Sssecmeton may be a bit problematic for us given his abundance of Pluto Thunder monsters. For the bulk of this duel, I'm going to try and remember to keep my guys out of Neptune and hope for the best. So while we go 1 for 1 with his water monsters, let's get back to the trivia. Australian coastlines comprise of half of the known 70 true sea snake species. Most sea snakes are venomous to some extent. There is actually still a debate as to whether sea snakes are more venomous than inland taipans. The answer is still the inland taipan, but with a bit of an asterisk. The inland chad is part of the Hydrophinae family, which is basically the same family as most sea snakes. It just happens to live in the middle of the desert like some sort of super boss. Anyways, getting back to sea snakes themselves, though they are called sea snakes, they don't have gills. They surface regularly to breathe. Sea snakes like warm water, so if it's summer, expect to see a lot more of them. The last time I encountered one was off the coast of Fiji. I was just happily swimming with my face in the water, looking at everything below, when I spotted 2 of these nope ropes swimming around the rock. Exiting both the waters of Fiji and this friggin' shrine, we need to get back on land. So we make our way to the last mage, which is thankfully situated atop a friggin' mountain. Now the lower mage primarily focuses on winged beasts. He can pull out a twin head, but I'm not overly worried, especially with the current starting hand that I have right here. So let's take a step back from scary snakes and look at some lizards. Blue tongue lizards. They get their name from their tongues, which is blue, and they basically resemble every child in summer who has a slushie. The blue tongue lizard is the most common thing you'll see here, and are actually pretty handy to have around your backyard. They eat lots of bugs and slugs, and even snails. They keep a lot of your vegetable patches looking pretty fresh, and are pretty docile as far as lizards go. Every time I've seen one, for their own safety, I've picked them up and relocated them, just in case any neighbourhood dogs get to them. I'll end by saying that they grow up to be 60 centimeters in length, and we'll end things there. Mountain Mage goes down, and he gives us a Queen's double. Let's head up to Atenza. Atenza is currently having a Copperhead party, which is another way of saying that he's stuck in a room with them, not the other way around. Now Atenza might be a problem. His Black Skull Dragon is probably my biggest threat, followed closely by Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. I'm not too worried about Meteor Black Dragon because we have the Guardian Star advantage against it. So we're going to play cautiously and head back to the trivia. Let's look at the Highland Copperhead. Surprise surprise, it's another venomous snake in Australia. This one can be found all the way up the snowy mountains. They are very secretive and typically timid. They would rather try and scare you off by hissing before going in for a venomous shot. Despite that though, they still sit in the top 10 list of most venomous snakes in the world. Copperhead was also a mercenary in a snake suit hired by Lex Luthor as a member of the Injustice Gang. He later joined the second Injustice Gang headed up by Erasure during their escape from biotech. Anyways, let's leave it there for the Justice League lore. Let's get back to the duel. We're on to the last two turns of the game. We have a super beefed up Crocodilus, and we have a Raigeki. We rock out with our Croc out once more and take down Atenza. He awards us with a Castle of Dark Illusions, and that is all the mages down. Having freed all the captive snakes at each shrine and obtaining all the Millennium items, we're going to take a quick pause and go out and do some grinding. We grab a Megamorph, a Bright Castle, and a Widespread Ruin, because believe me, our deck's going to need them. We swap out our equip cards and reduce some of the weaker monsters in our deck, and make ourselves comfortable because I have a feeling this one's going to take a while. For these next opponents, I'm going to include the loss counter at the end of every duel. This is to count how many times I lost specifically to this opponent, rather than the amount of times I had to duel them for each reset. I will total everything up at the end wrap up, but for now, it's time to face Sebek. Looking at our deck, it needed Bright Castle at minimum to make it more consistent at reaching at least 3000 attack points. 3000 is the minimum we need to take on Sebek and Neku. Crocodile Man set a face down, which I can only assume is a wall shadow. Beefing up Crocodilus, it's time for a 3D battle. Oh, it's a Labyrinth tank. That was an anatomically weird looking Crocodile Man. Anyways, with solely a Bright Castle, the maximum attack we can throw out on turn 1 is between 3100 and 3800, depending on the monster we drew. Since we cap at 3800, we need Megamorphs to carry us across Blue Eye's Ultimate Dragon, unless we happen to brute force a cycle that has all of our opponents not use one. And let's not forget Heishin too. That guy is good at beefing up anything he freaking has to be annoying. He's probably going to be my biggest threat in this duel aside from Seto 3. As for the addition of Widespread Ruins, those are there just as insurance for when we take on Nitemare, if we can make it to him at least. Crocodilus takes out Metal Zoa and we attack once more with the second. Sebek goes down and he awards us a Cybersaurus. We did not incur any losses to Sebek. Now, on to Neku. Neku ups the ante a little bit. His strongest monster hits for 3150, so we need to hit over 3000 attack. This is where Megamorphs and Bright Castles really start to shine. It adds to the consistency of this deck, which as you've seen from this playthrough, is pretty shonky at best. You'll pull off some lucky wins, but for the most part, I've been getting a lot of dead hands. 3D battle time. Can somebody please explain to me why the Emperor of Land and Sea looks like a rodent instead of some majestic sea serpent? Ugh, I'll never know with this game. Regardless, we seem to have the upper hand against Neku. We've got a beefy monster, and at this rate, I think I'm just grinding cards to show off more 3D animations. Though I can't make promises, this is a very difficult playthrough. We're on to the last 2-3 turns of the game. Out of sheer tiredness, orange goldfish energy, and just a mix of general stupidity, I decide to summon a monster rather than using a Raigeki. End outcome doesn't matter, just don't know why I didn't do it. Anywho, Neku is about to go down. We attack the game with the Emperor, and we win. Old mate drops us a Celtic Guardian, geez we're getting a lot of those, and we suffered 0 losses to Neku. We are face to face with Heishin and his Millennium Bat. We politely ask him to stop whacking snakes. He refuses. He then challenges us to a card game instead of beating us senseless with a stick. Getting into the first turn of the duel, we brick. Heishin is a royal pain in the ass of an opponent for multiple reasons. He's got a back row, he's got equips, he's got strong monsters, he's friggin' Heishin, and this game is forbidden memories, so a massive screw you to you right there. Thumbs up to Konami. Thankfully for this iteration, we managed to pull out a strong monster. Powering up the Emperor of Land and Sea to 3800 attack, I initiate a 3D battle, immediately forgetting that I had just done one. Oh well, here it is again if you wanted to see it. Gaining the upper hand, I think we'll continue with some trivia. Australia is home to a variety of monitor lizards. The most well-known one is the goanna, one of 25 species of Varanus native to Australia. Goannas themselves feature heavily in Aboriginal dreaming, which is, for lack of a better term, a religious worldview. It's hard to explain. It's not quite mythology, it's more of an ancestral view of the world. Regardless, goannas were represented in a lot of indigenous artworks. There was a common misconception that they were in fact venomous, based on early day confrontations. Instead, the bacteria in the saliva cause septicemia and various infections. Goannas can grow over 2.5 meters, which is 8.2 feet in length for some of you, and are equipped with the standard sharp teeth and claws. You can find them in dry arid conditions around most of Australia, except for Tasmania. At least depending on the variety of goanna you're looking at. Speaking of things to look at, 3D battle. What an ultimate battle of turns. This is actually the first time I've seen Toon Alligator and Bakura Box's animations. Here's a Raigeki for the win, an attack the game with Emperor, and attack again with Toon Alligator. Heishin 2 goes down, and this took us 6 friggin' attempts to achieve. Seto 3 sneaks up and grabs Heishin's bat. He laughs and runs maniacally outside. Seto confesses to us that he's had a plan for attracting every last snake to this location. He opens up a secret chamber containing the ultimate snake bait. Looking to put an end to Whacking Day, we challenge him to a duel. If that fails, we'll forcefully overpower him and bonk him on the head with a Millennium Bat. Okay, turn 1 isn't too spectacular, so we're gonna set a trap. He responds with immediate. Oh, what the frick was that? I'm sorry, let me put a screenshot of that up on screen. What the flying frick happened here? I think I've abused this game too much. Serves the guy right. Anywho, getting back to the game, we have 2 Raigeki in hand, an opponent with 4,700 life points, and a monster with 3,300 attack points. We've got this. Raigeki number 2 for the win, and attack for game. Wow. That was the quickest duel ever, but sadly we incurred 1 loss against Seto 3. Returning to the overworld, Heishin pulls a knife on Seto. I don't know much about Whacking Day, but I'm 98% certain that this is against the rules. Heishin slaps some of the items in the coffin and somehow resurrects Larry White. I've heard people say too much of anything is not a good thing for you, baby. And Heishin being turned into a card is proof that forbidden memories is hazardous to people's health. Larry turns his sights on us, but we quickly remind him who the heck he's dealing with. Relenting, he drags us down into a duel. Larry White is a potential pain in the butt. Reason being is that his deck is usually stacked with reverse traps. That is the bane of our existence. Our entire monster set relies on equip cards. They are too weak with Guardian Starboost to take on anything notable. The strongest thing Darknite can throw at us is either a Meteor Black Dragon or a Black Skull Dragon. And if our life points get under 1,000, he will always respond with a tremendous fire. Thankfully, with the way the current duel is going, we don't seem to be having any problems. He has summoned a Black Skull Dragon, but we've overpowered it with 100 attack points. Oh, there we go. There's number 2. Larry White goes down and he drops us a Sword Arm of Dragon, which is a friggin' rare drop. He unfortunately beat us once. So I had to go all the way back to the start and make it back here just to face off against Nitemare. Now Nitemare is a straightforward duel. If we overpower his first monster, we win. That's about it. I'm going to play cautiously and leave something in defense just to know what we're dealing with here. And it's a Gate Guardian. Right, 3750. We should have just enough in our hand with that Megamorph to hit over it. 28, 33, 38, we got this. For the remainder of the duel, I'm going to try and see if I can overpower another monster so we can see another 3D animation. No promises of course, but hey, I'm just freaking thankful to be facing this guy, cause spoiler, I didn't beat him first try. Back to the start I had to go. I've exhausted all the Reptile trivia I had on hand. Nothing I have left unless I Google up something. Australia as a landscape sounds pretty scary. We have very venomous snakes and equally venomous spiders. Why would you want to be here? Well, if you look at the world balance of the entire globe that is Earth, a lot of the status afflicting monsters live down here. We don't have to contend with hippos, bears, tigers, or any of the giant scary creatures, unless you count drop bears, or if you get on the wrong side of a kangaroo, or piss off an emu and lose a civil war to them. Heck, even without animals, the ocean itself has ripped so many people out to sea that we've lost count. What was I saying again? Wasn't important. Nitemare goes down, awards us a mystical sand, and we incurred one loss. However, returning with the fury of 1,000 suns, we banish Larry White back to his tomb and have successfully put an end to Whacking Day. Play that victory song, because guess what? We just defeated YuGiOh Forbidden Memories using a Reptile deck. Would I recommend this run? Frick no. Here's the run wrap up. The campaign took 80 duels to complete, of which we lost 17 times. We played 60 duels in free mode, which brings the total up to 140 duels. Our average duel duration was about 3 minutes and 3 seconds. Adding that all up, the campaign took 4 hours and 4 minutes to complete. Ignore the fact that this video took about 2 months to get out. In terms of ranking, Reptiles rank at the very bottom of the list. The campaign taking 40 minutes longer than the Pyro deck. But hey, at least they're better than Rituals. Hey everyone, Jon O here. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I'm at the busy half of the year, so this one took much longer than expected. You're all awesome for patiently waiting for it. Before I sign off, I want to give a massive shout out to Wizards First Rule 57 and I Can Only Suffer for supporting the channel. You peeps are amazing as always. There is a massive backlog of things to catch up on, including shorts, chat streams, and of course, the next challenge run. Things will slow down heading into Christmas, but let's see what Santa can do in terms of an end of year video. So, while you're here, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to stay notified of my next release. And as always, stay awesome people. Hope you all draw a Raigeki for the win, and I'll be seeing you all soon.